Hi everyone, I've seen some people talk in their videos about tracking how many series they are currently reading or how many ongoing series they have. I realized that that's something I actually have absolutely no idea about. I have no idea how many series I am currently reading, and when I actually thought about it, I thought that was kind of a scary thing to find out, so I thought it might be kind of fun to go through it. So I wrote down every series that I could remember that I'm currently reading, so we're gonna see how many that is. At first I thought that it really couldn't be all that many, because I feel like I'm not somebody that just starts a million series. I do kind of try to keep going with the series that I'm reading, but there are a few that I've started and haven't continued, and then there's others that I'm caught up on, but they have more books coming out in the future. So yeah, it ended up being a few more than I thought. Here were my criteria. It has to be something that I actually think of as a series, so not just a book that an author wrote and then later decided to do a sequel, or that they might do a sequel for eventually, or something like that. Duologies are fine as long as the author is clear that it is part of a planned duology. There are plenty of series that I've started that I'm not really planning to continue, or I'm not sure if I'm planning to continue, so if it's a series that I've DNF'd or might DNF, I'm just not going to mention it in this video. Obviously, if it is something ongoing, I have to be at least aware that the author is planning to write more, so there might be something else that I've read where I just have no idea that the author planned to make it a series or something like that, so there may be stuff I've forgotten, but I tried to be as comprehensive as possible. Oh, and this probably goes without saying since I'm talking about ongoing series, I'm not talking at all about series that I have already read and finished. So I came up with a few different categories for this just to keep it organized in my mind, because I view each of these things a little bit differently in terms of how I feel about where I'm at with the series. And of course, I can't remember what they all are off the top of my head, so let's look. So first I'll talk about series I'm caught up on, by which I mean series that are not finished being released, but I've read every book that's out. Then I'll talk about series that are completed, and I've read more than one of them, but I'm not finished yet. Then I'll talk about series that I've read only one of the series, but there is more than one book out. And then finally, I'll talk about series where there's only one book out so far, and I've read that, but the author is planning to write more. So that's probably way too many categories, to be honest, but oh well. Those are kind of all distinct relationships with series. So let me know what you guys think of that. Maybe it's just insane. I think, thank goodness, the biggest category was actually the first one, which is series that I'm caught up on that just aren't finished being released, because I feel like those are guilt-free series in my mind. It's not my fault that the author hasn't finished writing them, so there's nothing I can do to complete those series until the final book gets published. So in this category, we have the Locked Tomb trilogy, which is Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, Book 3, Alecto the Ninth, which should finish the series. That's supposed to be coming out next year. Then we have the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, the series that starts with Senlin Ascends. 3 out of the 4 books are out for that series. I just finished The Hod King pretty recently. It was amazing. Whole series is amazing. Highly recommend. You can go check out my reviews for a lot of these books, by the way. I'll link down below to any of these books or series where I have reviews, by the way. But since I finished The Hod King, I am now officially caught up with the Books of Babel, which honestly, I feel like I read this series kind of slowly, both because I was nervous that I would be let down by each successive book, but also, yeah, now I'm caught up and I just have to wait with everyone else that's caught up, and that kind of stinks sometimes. Next, we have, I guess not surprisingly, if you look at my bookshelf, a whole bunch of Brandon Sanderson. So the Stormlight Archive, obviously 4 out of 10 of those are out, and goodness knows when that will be finished. But, probably in my lifetime, because Brandon Sanderson seems to be still moving at a steady clip. Wax and Wane, the Mistborn Era 2 series, Sanderson has just started writing the 4th one of those, and that's going to be last. Maybe I should have just put the Cosmere on here instead of listing all these different series, but oh well, I kind of think of them as different series. Then he has the Skyward series, which is the young adult science fiction series, which, honestly, it's not my favorite. I actually think my husband enjoyed it a bit more than me, but I do enjoy that series, and I think there are going to be 4 of them eventually, and the 3rd one just got turned in and should get published in November. Then, okay, let's see what else. The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. That's the Grace of Kings and the Wall of Storm. I really need to do more content about this series. I know I say that every time I mention it. It's one of those things where I did really like The Grace of Kings when I first read it last summer, and then ever since then, I've just been getting steadily more obsessed with the series. Book 2, The Wall of Storms, I finished it pretty recently. That was amazing. I'm going to reread the whole series. I'll reread the first 2 this summer, and then the 3rd one's coming out in November, so I am super excited for that. I really hope the 3rd one is good. Oh, Okay, then of course we have the Kingkiller Chronicle, which will probably be on my list of not completed series forever, sadly. It's been now 10 years since book 2 came out. I don't really need to say anything about Patrick Rothfuss, right? Like, it's all been said. I feel really sorry for him. I do hope we get book 3 eventually. I'm not exactly holding my breath. I'm kind of over it, but the series will always have a special place in my heart, that's for sure. Then we have the Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal. There are 3 out, which I've read all of them, really enjoyed them, especially the last one, The Relentless Moon. I think Kowal is contracted to write at least one more book in the series. She may have more ideas than that. It's sort of being developed into a pretty extensive literary universe. But yeah, really looking forward to whenever more of those come out. I think she has a book coming out this year that is not a Lady Astronaut book, which I'll probably check out as well. Then we have The Finder Chronicles by Suzanne Palmer, which I've mentioned a few times. I tried to get my husband to read the first one and he was not a fan. I don't think anyone else has read it on my recommendation either. It's basically science fiction, kind of a thriller, action, adventure type story about Fergus Ferguson, who's an intergalactic repo man. He just has various adventures and yeah, just sort of a fun sort of detective thriller kind of story, basically. I'm not sure if this is intended to be a trilogy or more than that, but 2 are out so far and I read both of them. The last thing I have on here in terms of series I'm caught up on is the Sixth World series by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the series that started with Trail of Lightning, and the second one is Storm of Locusts. This is more urban fantasy than my usual taste. It's sort of a dystopian urban fantasy based a lot around Native American mythology. I generally like it. It's maybe not my favorite, but both entries in the series have been solid in my opinion. So all of those series add up to a total of 10 series that I am currently reading, but I'm also caught up on. So now let's look at the series where I've read more than one, but I have not read the entire series or I'm not caught up. So first of all, we have The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. I just finished Ruin, which is book 3. I'll probably talk about that more in my April wrap-up. This series hasn't been my favorite, but I do understand why so many people like it. And at this point, I'm definitely going to go ahead and finish it. I actually really like the action. I really like the characters. There's a lot really good about it. I just have a few things about it haven't really worked for me. And also it is 90% just people fighting. And I would be happy if that ratio was more like 50%, to be honest. Even though I do love a good action scene, and John Gwynne is he is one of the best at writing action that I've ever read. Then, of course, if you guys have been following this channel, you probably know I'm reading through The Wheel of Time right now. So I've read the first 3. I should be reading book 4 pretty soon. There are 14 of them plus the prequel, so obviously very much not caught up, but very actively reading this series as well. Another series that I've been gradually working my way through is the Encrypted series by Seanan McGuire. I've read 6 of them. I think there's 10 out right now. This is a really just fun, quick series. I've talked about it more in other videos, so I won't right now, but it's kind of a fun, quirky urban fantasy with a fun cast of characters, and these are really nice books to read in between other, long doorstopper fantasy type books. Seanan McGuire has quite a few long-running series. I think her October Days series, which is on this year's list of Hugo series finalists, so I said I would read at least the first few. I think that is up to like 14 entries at this point. At least they're not as long as The Wheel of Time. They're probably like 300-page books and pretty quick to read. Obviously pretty quick to write too, because she's really churning them out. Then I wasn't really sure if I should count this next series as 1 or 2, so I'll count it as 1. It's Lois McMaster Bujold, her World of the Five Gods universe. So there's 3 books kind of in the main trilogy, which I read 2 of, and I'm currently reading the 3rd one, The Hallowed Hunt. But then also she has this series of novellas, the Penric and Desdemona series, which is technically set in the same universe, but it's kind of its own self-contained series. You don't have to have read the other books to understand it, but they're also kind of part of the same series and universe. Either way, I'm in book 3 of the main novels, and I've read 2 out of the Penric novellas. They're really good, by the way. I'll talk about this more in my wrap-up too, because this was something I pulled out of my April TBR hat and have really been enjoying. But I think there are maybe 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them out so far. They're novellas, so I should get through it. I think I'll be pretty caught up. I think I'll be caught up on this relatively soon, but it's still an ongoing series right now. Technically, Discworld is a series that I've read a fefew of, but I'm definitely not caught up on. I don't really know how to list this because, who even reads Discworld in order? Nobody really does that. I've probably read like about 5 Discworld books in my time, and I generally really like Discworld. I'm not really actively reading Discworld, and I haven't really been thinking about reading more Discworld, but I probably will at some point, so it still kind of felt fair to list this as an ongoing series. And then the last one on here I actually have not read from since I started my channel, but it was sort of a guilty pleasure read the year before that. I can't even remember how many I've read. It's kind of a long ongoing series, but it's the Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes series by Laurie King. This is one I honestly thought I was going to kind of hate read when I started it, because it's about Sherlock Holmes taking on this young female apprentice, and then when she grows up they get married, and it sounds like it should be really weird, but actually it's kind of good. So yeah, so I've read several of these and would read more if I was in the mood. I'll probably finish this series someday unless I am just too distracted. So counting up those, that seems to be a total of 6 series that I have started, and I'm currently working my way through, and I've read more than one of them, but I'm not caught up and haven't read everything. Okay, next let's talk about series that have more than one book out, but I've only read one of them, but I'm still planning to read at least one more. So in this category, we have The Memoirs of Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. Is that who it's by? This is a fairly long series, I think. I've read only the first one, The Natural History of Dragons, which I actually really liked. It sort of has this Victorian historical fantasy feel with a lady adventurer main character. I read the first one, I think, a few months before I started the channel, maybe like late 2019 or early 2020. I have been intending to read more of this series ever since and just have never gotten around to it, but I have mentioned it before on the channel. I really would like to get to it. Then we have a couple I'm a little more neutral on, but I've committed publicly to reading at least one more. We have The Expanse. I've read Leviathan Wakes. It was kind of okay to me. It was sort of, mostly my issue was actually the characters. They were just kind of these, the point of view characters were just these sort of generic sci-fi men that just didn't do much for me, and I didn't really enjoy them very much. But overall, the setup and the series seems interesting, and I've heard the show is really good. So I've said I'll read at least book 2 in the series and see if it picks up a little bit for me. And then also the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. I read The Ruin of Kings. It had an amazing start, a catastrophic middle, and an okay ending. So I kind of still want to try The Name of All Things. However, I've been saying that since last summer and still haven't gotten to it. But now that Jen Lyons is on the Hugo shortlist again for Best New Writer, I've committed publicly again to reading The Name of All Things this year. So we'll see about that. This may fall off the continuing series list if I don't like book 2, but I just wanted to give it one more shot. Then we have Sufficiently Advanced Magic. I think that series is called the Arcane Ascension series. I think 3 of them are out, but maybe it's only 2. I literally just finished reading the first one. I have a review that either just came out or will come out soon. I filmed it earlier today, so I definitely want to read at least one more of that series as well. So that is a total of 4 series that have more than one book out, but I've only read the first book. Then we have a few series where only one book is out so far, but I'm planning to read the next one when it comes out. So we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm not sure when the next one of those is coming out. I was not a huge fan of Shadow and Bone at all, so I don't think I'll be reading any more of Leigh Bardugo's YA stuff, but I really liked Ninth House as a dark, disturbing, like dark academia, ghost fantasy kind of story. Even a little darker than what I usually go for, but I thought it was really gripping and scary. Over the Woodward Wall by Shauna Maguire is the first one in a series. It's kind of based on these in-world children's novels in her book Middle Game, so I'm not sure how many of them she's actually planning to write in the real world, but yeah, she wrote these under the pen name A. Deborah Baker, and yeah, we'll see, but I'm planning to read at least the next one when it came out. I thought the first one was really quite cute. Very quick read, obviously. It was like 100 pages. I think that's technically probably a middle grade series, but it's kind of hard to say because it reads like it's either for adults or like pretty young kids, but not really anywhere in between. Then there's The Scholomance by Naomi Novik. I read A Deadly Education. I liked it pretty well. I think the second one's coming out this summer. Planning to read the next one. Not sure if this is supposed to be a trilogy or less or more, but I'm generally planning to continue it because I liked the first one well enough. Then Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, which I just read in December. That's the first book, and I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. Anyway, that book does not stand on its own whatsoever. It has a pretty crazy ending, so definitely we'll be reading the next one to find out what happens. So that's also a total of 4 series that have only one book out that I have read, but I'm planning to read more. So, adding all of those up, that is a total of 24 series. And of course, while I was filming this video, I remembered at least one more series that I forgot to write down, which is The Founders by Robert Jackson Bennett. I really enjoyed Foundry Side, and then I didn't quite like Shorefall, but I think this is either a trilogy or more, so I definitely want to read the next one because I liked at least the first one, and I do still kind of want to find out what happens. So that already brings it up to 25. So I don't know, guys, I'm sure I've forgotten other stuff. I just can't remember right now. Honestly, not sure. Is 25 a good or a terrifying number of ongoing series? Obviously, about half of these I've read as many books as have been published, so this isn't quite something I have control over, but it does kind of feel like a lot. I've never been one of those people that didn't want to read series until they were finished. I kind of love the anticipation of waiting for a new release, and then also the fear and the emotions that go along with worrying something you really liked so far will disappoint you. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the thrill of reading to me. I wouldn't want to give that up. But is 25 ongoing series too many? I don't know. Have you guys counted this for yourselves? What do you guys think? Do I need to start even more series? Am I already losing my mind? Who knows? Let me know down in the comments.